folks. This is La, the CEO of TGL, Think Global Logistics. Today we're going to talk about some of our competitors and why you should use each one of them and how TGL stands out from the crowd. The list here is basically based on my individual personal experience being active in the marketplace, as well as the company's exposure to these competitors. It is coming from first-hand experience, not just conjecture or just talking nonsense. Mainly what we're trying to do with this particular video is to try to give you some insight or give you a better understanding what type of company may suit your business. So the first cab off the rank is Mainfreight. Mainfreight is a Kiwi company who have, over the last decades, smaller scale multinational by the sense that they're actually on the ground in the US, Australia, New Zealand, and maybe a few other countries. But they are very robust. I will consider them a quality, large scale type of freight forwarder, as well as the domestic distribution transport company, because they do have their own facilities as well as their own trucks. So a lot of customers that I come across do utilize Mainfreight as the local transport service provider instead of the international service actually. So they are in many essence a one-stop shop, but again, over the decades they have grown quite large, and therefore their concentration on the business that they want is vastly different compared to the 3 decades I've been in this game, because as you grow bigger you want larger customers because you have higher costs, because smaller customers simply isn't going to chip away at the massive burden that your infrastructure that you've built over the decades. So therefore make sure you are a large importer or exporter before you consider Mainfreight. Second company is also one that's relatively well known, albeit not top tier multinational. They're definitely up and coming, but there's an Asian company called Kerry Logistics. Very strong across Asia. So if you do intra-Asia work, there definitely will be a very solid option. We, TGL, operate out of Vietnam, and I know Kerry Logistics is very well presented pretty much a lot of Asian countries. They even have their own little courier trucks running around in Asia. I know they've expanded into Europe and also over into North America. They're definitely here in Australia as well, of course. This is a larger setup in one-stop shop for all the, there should be one-stop shopping from air freight, sea freight, the usual gambit of services. So again, make sure that your company is a large company before you consider Kerry Logistics. And when I say large, what does large company mean? At least minimum, you're hitting up about 1,000 shipments a year. That's pretty large in Australian standards. Very small in Asia or Europe or US standards, but you've got to be over 1,000 shipments before you consider these type of companies. Because otherwise, yes, they may come and service you, but you're going to be paying a very high premium, and you're going to get inconsistent service. The reason being, I know that you might get good service from this one person, but or this one branch, but you'll get a completely different experience in another branch, because different branches have their different priorities. Just because you sit high in their profile on one branch doesn't mean you rate very highly on another branch of their international operations. So you're going to get that variance. And because when you're dealing with multinationals, they're all the same company. On paper and in theory, normally goes, well, if I'm dealing with the same company, it must be great consistent service. Far from it. In fact, you'll probably get more variance because there's complacency, right? Because when you're dealing with your own office, and that office is giving you business to handle, you know that they haven't got any options to use anyone else. So whether you give 3-star or 5-star service, it's the same, right? It's all about how much money they're going to make from each other. That's going to be paramount on how much priority they will give you as a customer. The next cab of the rank is Henning Harders, and they're an Australian company, and they're a family business still. And over the years that I've been active in the marketplace, albeit I haven't come across them as often as some of the other multinationals, I have come across the customers that I do come across that uses Henning Harders services have nothing but good things to say about them. So that tells me that they're a pretty solid operation. They are an Australian company. I don't believe they have any overseas offices. If they do, maybe one or two, but they're definitely not a multinational. But they're what I consider a medium, large scale Australian freight forwarder that can manage international services. And the type of customers that would suit Henning Harders will be, you're an Australian customer, and of the medium size, and maybe some large size, and you want to have a bit more of that personal relationship feel that comes with a family business, right? So yeah, again, I believe they're a pretty quality operator and should satisfy your needs if you're an Australian importer or exporter. The fourth one on the list is probably one that have the most respect for. And I respect all my competitors, of course, but it's DHL, right? They're massive, Any company that can make their socks become a hyper beast item, especially in logistics, has got my confidence or has got my vote of confidence, right? That is the McDonald's yellow and the red, isn't it? Because that's what Macca's use that color because they sell fries and chicken nuggets, right? It's but the good operator. Why? Because they're freaking German. Germans are usually great. They're anal about process, right? And Germany, on the fun fact, is probably the only country in the world where the population actually looks up to and actively engages in wanting to be involved in logistics and to join logistics industry as a career. So, it's a very sought after profession and career in Germany. And as a result, the quality of the service given by German companies are normally higher than that of any other country. It's purely because of the focus on the importance of that industry. And rightly so. I think logistics industry is the most important industry amongst all other industries. So DHL, they are the largest in my view, and maybe a few others come close, but DHL, they are more comprehensive, right? I mean, they sponsor the Formula One, they've got all the glamour and the glitz and so forth, but most importantly, they're massive. They can handle anything. They can create any miracle when it comes to logistics, purely because of their size and the capital and the resources. So, but that doesn't mean they're right for you. And in fact, probably DHL isn't right for most people because of their sheer dominance and scale and what have you. And come with that, there's a lot of cost in there as well, right? So, the top tier industry captains or, in terms of companies, that's where it's most suited to the DHL environment, name anyone, Apples of the world, Dells of the world, Amazon of the world. Now Amazon's trying to compete with us or that, and they may very well succeed. So to be frank, if I was the purchasing logistics manager or the director of logistics or the head of procurement, whatever, blah, 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 and I work for one of these top tier firms, that requires logistics services, I would definitely be considering DHL as my number one option, purely because of their scale, their reach, and their capacity. And if you fit in their profile, what they want or what DHL wants, and you fit in with them, they can create some magic for you. But again, how many top tier firms are there in the world? Not many, right? Most of us are SMEs, and sometimes, for us to use a big player, like the ones I mentioned, doesn't suit us. Why? Because bigger competitors of you works with these bigger players. And if you join that boat, where's your advantage, right? Think about that, right? You're a smaller company and you've got this large competitor and they may be using, say, DHL or Mainfreight, Kerry or Henning Harders. You need to ask yourself, well, how am I going to get this advantage out of this relationship if I know my biggest competitor is using them? Because surely their relationship with them is longer. They're bigger than you, so naturally they're going to get better service and better rates. So for you to jump on that boat, you're already coming off second base, right? It doesn't work. There's no logic in it. So think about that, guys. So you need to look at companies who have exposure to your industry, but that they will still treat you like you are a priority, and you need to be a priority, because otherwise you're simply not going to get the best. Full stop, right? And then you're gonna, like any smaller competitor that where in an environment that you have a larger competitor, you can't compete like them. If you're offering the same product or the same unique selling propositions as your larger competitor, identical, your survival is limited. Why? Because you're just a cut price version of your larger competitor. Just like your product needs to have these differences that your larger competitor don't have, and that's why you can compete and maybe one day surpass them, is because of this unique difference. This is how you should treat any supplier, especially a logistics supplier. Right, and this is where a good segue into TGL. We deep dive into every single one of our customer relationships, and we take the time to ask the right questions to understand, and then we'll tell you whether the fit for purpose is there or not. If we don't feel we are giving you the best advantage, that you can have an advantage in your competitive space, we will just go, listen, we're not going to provide anything better for you. Be a price, be a service, you already got what's good. We're going to give you that honest analysis and feedback. But one thing I can tell you, what we will do as a smaller competitor to some of these giants that I've just mentioned, is that we will fight harder. Because I've always said to my people, we don't want to be the biggest, we want to be the hungriest. And that in itself drives us to, constantly drives us to be better. We will never rest on our laurels. And for the customers that we know and we choose, and we can see that there is a fit, and in so doing that you can grow. And if we can help you to grow, naturally we are going to grow with you, and that's our philosophy. We can do the full services, we have air freight, sea freight, import, export, warehousing, 3PL, whole gambit. Essentially, if you look at what we are doing today, albeit in a much smaller scale, is everything all of the providers I just mentioned on this video can do. Yes, we might not have the reach in some of the countries. We might not have the number of people, the number of trucks and what have you. But guess what? We can connect to networks, and the networks that we spent years of developing, quality people who are also trying to be the next best thing or the next, hungriest thing. Together, you've got these hungry, independent individuals coming together as a network in competing with these giants, So we don't rest on our laurels. So again, we don't pretend we are the same as our multinational competitors. We are not, right? But what we can promise our clients is that we will always fight harder and we'll always be the hungriest. And this is why I think TGL, for most SMEs, is the best choice, or is your best choice when it comes to your freight forwarding partner. And I hope we can do some business together soon. Thank you.